what do they care most about? And if they care about eating and living, and you're saving that to the end, they can't ask the right questions and they can't even
Correct.
focus because
Correct.
that's what they care about.
Correct.
Knock out what they care about first. Don't let
Correct.
the elephant
And
sit there.
and what happens is that's also where they're the most engaged and ask the most questions. So it sets a tone for more talking with across a tour
Yes.
instead of talking
Love
at.
it. Love it. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful episode of CRMprov. As always, I'm your host, Mickey Baines. I'm excited. I've been waiting for about 3 or 4 weeks for us to get together for this episode. I have Jeff Kallay with us. Jeff's the go-to person in higher education for campus visit experiences. I don't know, Jeff, you've been doing this for 25 years for campus visit experiences?
2016. No,
2016?
2006. 2006.
2006. So 17 years for campus visit experiences. You've been over, 300 colleges? Probably 350 maybe at this point?
As visit consulting clients,
Yep.
I've stopped counting the number of tours I've taken. And I think in my total higher ed career, probably 400, 500 campuses.
That's a lot. Just
a
handful. You know what? It would be hard to find someone could speak to that as well as you could, or anywhere close. I mean, what? So you're at, let's say, 450 to be conservative. What do you think the person at number 2 would be? 150 maybe.
Oh, you got, Ray Brown, who is legendary in enrollment. If you've ever crossed paths with Ray, right?
Yep.
He was at Valparaiso and TCU, and now he's doing the registry things. And I actually hired us when he was at John Carroll and is now at University of Texas in Arlington. He's been to a number, visiting college campuses is his side hustle. So he's been in the hundreds too. So
so there's still going to be a good gap. If we were to chart this out, there's you, and then there's a big drop for Ray, and then another big drop, and there's probably a pool of people behind that.
Sure.
So there'll be very few people that could pull from a plethora of experience in this to really dive in. And so I want to talk all about campus visits and experiences. If we have time, I want to hit on a little bit about some of your corporate work, because I know you do a little work with Disney. And that's always fun, because I'm sure if I'm in your shoes doing that, I probably would do that at a steep corporate discount. Let's be fair. Corporate rates are different than higher ed rates. A steep corporate discount, because I know what I would learn from them could easily be applied in so many ways in higher ed. And I love to pull from other industries and see what they're doing there. It's really advanced, and see what I can apply in higher ed. So I'm sure I'd love to, if we have time, dive in a little bit about that. And I'm going to tell you this first, and I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. So my family and I, we travel a lot every summer. We have an RV, we go places. Next summer, we always take a big trip. So last summer, we went up to Canada, up to north of Alberta, to Banff and Jasper National Parks, and then we went to Glacier National Park. 6-week trip. This summer, it's a series of 2.5 to 3 week trips, and it's all for campus tours.
Yay!
So my oldest is just a little early. My oldest will be finishing his sophomore year this year, and then this summer, before 11th grade, we're going to go visit. We have, I think, 18 or so lined up. And so one of the other selfish things that I hope the audience can also gather in this process is I want to get from you some questions or some points and things I should be looking at for me as a consultant, but also for my son, who's a prospective student. So
can make that happen.
Does that sound fair?
That sounds great.
All right. My first question. Campus visits. Well, let me back up. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Mickey.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
So I know we've done some webinars in the past, and we've been on other calls, and I think between your time, because Jeff, you're a senior vice president for enrollment at Echo Delta now. You spent time at RNL. You spent time at TargetX. So a lot of the big names. So you know a lot of people in the industry on the practitioner side at college universities and on the dark side with consulting. So you've got that experience. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much. Now I think we can say that I've caught back up to the intro. I got ahead of myself. So first question. campus visit experience, when does it start?
I think it should start earlier than it does. So I always counsel families, get your child on a college campus as early as possible. If it's an athletic event, a cultural event, take your dog and go walk. Like, don't be afraid to just acclimate yourselves as a family to a college campus. So that's my take on it, right? Is it should start when they're 5 years old and you go take in a game or a theater or a cultural event, right? Or just go
Yep.
eat on campus. I just demystify this for your child.
Yep.
But I think once we're in it, I think it really starts when a family goes to the college's website.
Okay. And from a
That is for me when
visit
the
experience,
experience starts.
and so from that side, if it starts at the website, if I'm the institution, what are my top two, maybe three things I have to be thinking about for that prospective student, prospective family that lands on that website?
I
What is it
think,
I'm trying to craft
yeah.
for them from an
Well, for
experience
me, for the
perspective?
visit should always be above the fold and on every page. So if I see you have a major I want, or you have a sport I think I want to play, you don't have to make me think to intuitively click visit to go visit. That right?
Yep.
Every time we've got clients to move where visit is on their website, the analytics have increased the number of hits to visit and the number of visitors. I think the second part is realizing the homepage is for prospective families, not for the library, not for, right, you've got your own internal or an internet and all those things. And I think then I would say demystifying the nomenclature and the language to what is evolving into being a more diverse and first generation population of traditional undergrads. So
Okay.
I think that we create college websites for everyone except prospective families.
And is there a particular type of data set that you're looking for when someone does get to that visit site to sign up to come for a visit? Is there are there pieces of data that you want to see a school collecting for that?
Yeah, and that's one of the requests we ask in a campus visit consult. I think that what we're looking at is beyond numbers, right? The number of visitors. I think that we want to take a look at the registration. We want to take a look at two things: is if someone has clicked visit, they're really ready to visit. And I
Yep.
think that the language is still trying to convince them the best way to discover a school is no, get me to my options, make it easy, explain the difference between an open house event and a daily visit. Make that language exacting, it should manage expectations of how long a visit's going to be, what it is going to include. And then I think it is simplify the registration process. Again, I think most institutions are self-serving or data centric than they are guest centric. I think to this point is what we want to look at often is who is registering. I have a hunch 90% of campus visit registrations are done by a parent. And I'm really going to gender stereotype here. I think they're done by the mom. And I think that what we want to see in that data is who is registering, because that makes a big difference. Because here's what happens, Mickey, is a mom registers and she selects every choice. Then they get to campus, they walk in, here's your schedule, and the Gen Z kid is like, I don't want to meet with a faculty member. Right. So for us,
Yes.
I think this, right, it's about managing expectations, knowing who's registering. And I think also my former business partner, Trent Gilbert, who we kind of founded the campus visit together, and he's VP at Birmingham Southern now, he would always say, there should be a bit of a flirt. There should be a bit of dating in this, and you shouldn't,
Yes.
right? Like, so I think it's don't do everything on that first visit. I didn't answer your question about data exactly.
No,
Uh,
but you helped me. And there are a couple of the things in here. This is why this is improv, because we can get to this from that question. I love the analogy to dating. because I use that a lot if I'm working with a recruitment team and they're trying to, we're talking about how we are following up or doing the right recruitment with the student. Nobody wants to be the first person to say, I love you, right?
Correct.
In a relationship, most of the time. We also don't want to finish a first date. And I'm going to go old school here because this doesn't happen in the real world, but anymore. But you don't want to finish a first date, go home and have a message on the answering machine from that person before you've even walked in the door. Certain things, you don't want to be aggressive with it. So I always like that dating analogy. Now, I would guess you're right with that hunch in terms of who's doing that. So, I don't think we've signed up for any tours yet. So we know we're going next summer. I don't think but I will tell you, my wife's already been on several of those school sites looking to see how far out in advance she can schedule. Because we are hitting, like, it's on Tuesday we're going to be in Richmond and this is the school we're going to see, and on Thursday we're going to be here and this is the 2 schools we need. So you want to how far out, because you don't want it to fill up. We are planners. To be fair, as a family, we are planners and we plan out. I've already planned out summer of 2025 from our travel schedule. I've started mapping out where we're going to be. So we plan. But in that instance, when she's trying to look, I have to pull back to say, don't you register for anything yet? Because she wants to do it. She's the mom. I'm also, this is kind of my work. I want to be involved. Normally I would say, go right ahead, but I want to be involved. So I have to pull back. Don't fill it out yet. Let me at least see what that form looks like, because we don't want to duplicate efforts. But I do believe you're right.
That's almost to your point, though. The registration should ask, who is registering?
That was what I was about to say. Is should a school say, who's filling out the form? I'm the student, or I'm a parent, guardian, or family member of student looking for it. That way, the follow-up information can then be directed to that person. You can also then grab the student information if it's not the student, email to that student, say, hey, so-and-so has signed you up for a tour. Here's what we have coming for you. And then to the person who signed up, we've got it. We've got you and this person you're signing up for the tour. Right. Here's what's going to happen. And you can start to tailor those messages rather than sending out this bland, generic thing that's pretending to be for the student when we know it's not. Let's be real.
To whom you should send communication.
Yes.
Right. And
by the way, the data piece,
those things with direction, right? The parent uses the child's information, and the child never shares the confirmation or here's the video about how to get to Campus Best and Park and all those things. Yes. I think that's. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, in my mind, so the follow, let's just say I don't get that on the form. Who are you filling out this form? One of the other things I would do to try to understand it is, in that email that goes out, I'm probably going to say, if you're the student, click here. If you're the parent, click here.
Correct.
Students, please forward this to a parent if they will be joining you. And that way, when they click that link, I have an idea who the person is. And that might help me tailor it until I can really confirm and also have the parent information in there.
But the biggest challenge that I have, Mickey, is I'm going to go on a rant here.
Yeah, go ahead.
But higher ed still has not wrapped its head around the co-purchasing unit that started with boomers and millennials and has only gotten more intense with what Helen Strauss called, lawnmower or stealth Gen X parents. And you look at R&L's data of their last student report, and the top influencer, 68%, is a parent. And the next one in the high 20s is friends. So we still act like parents don't exist and that they're not involved in the process. They're not in the decision, and that they're going to just drop their child off and go away. And I still have faculty when I stand up there and do a whole, because we try to get buy-in and support from the rest of campus and to support the campus visit. So we educate them on Helen Strauss's American Generational Theories, and Echo Delta did a deep dive last year into Gen X parents. And they still get faculty that, well, it's our job to turn them into, and I'm like, that ship sailed 20 some years ago when boomers became best friends with their children. So it is amazing to me how higher ed still acts like parents don't exist. And that's why one of the things we do is and when I say parent, I mean supportive and loving adult, because not everyone has a traditional family structure, or, like my brother, older brother, outsourced his children's college search to me, just,
yes,
because.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were the parent. Yep. In
Exactly.
that scenario, yes. You provided the parental guidance.
And that's why then you watch on the campus tours, Mickey, and the admissions counselors act like the parents don't exist face to face. And then a tour guide says, I need all the students to say their name, hometown, and major, and then start walking. And the very first person to ask a question is a parent, right? So we train guides to rethink those introductions. And who did you bring with you, and their name? And I'll tell you a fast story. We did this at Western Michigan University when they were a render client. And we went back 6 weeks later to audit things again. Group of 30 out on tour, and the tour guide did what we trained them to do. Tell us your name, and this typical 17-year-old male is like, hey, my name's Connor, and I'm going to major in gaming design. And this is my mom. And the mom, she steps into the middle of the group. She says, I am his mom, and I have a name, and it's Janet, right? It wasn't enough for her to just be introduced. She needed even more. So, but we act like that Janet doesn't exist in the search process and on tour. So that's my little rant.
Well, but it's important that Janet has shown you how involved she is in that tour and how involved she expects to be.
And to be seen and heard.
Yes. And I looked at the report you were just referencing, your Gen X parent report.
It's a good one.
It was really good report.
I'm happy. It is so downloaded, and I'm proud of us for doing that.
If you had, if you could call out 2 things from that report that people need to know about, what would they be?
I think the 4 types of parents that it outlines, and I should know these because I present this so much, the inclusive, the anxious, the negative one, the 4. I have not had enough coffee to describe my 4 types. So I think the 4 types of Gen X parents, right?
Yep.
The inclusive,
I have the report here. Let me see if I can find
the report right
inclusive, anxious, invested, and skeptical.
Yes. So what's so fascinating is I asked tour guides what 2 type, and they're skeptical and anxious. So I think that right. And then, so to me, those 4 types matter to know what type of parent you're dealing with, so you communicate with them accordingly. Because if you have an anxious parent, then you really need to talk about the second point of I think there's 34 data points in that survey. Yeah. But the one that lists the top concerns Gen X parents have is the one that really spoke to me, and the one that I share with my clients in my presentations. Because if you read it, there's 2 things, cost of living was number 1. But we also did that research in fall of 2022, which inflation was so high on everyone's mind, right? So I think that still an issue, but I think all the more. But the cost of living, not just the cost of college, but the cost of living. But then the next 4 or 5 points are all about emotional stress, academic stress, mental stress. And then the 6th point is they'll get a job, which I thought would have been top of the list.
Yeah.
So I think there's 2 things there. I think that, and I'm a bitter Gen Xer. I'm diamond medallion on the Gen X bitter bus, right? I think the 2 things. We as Americans don't trust institutions anymore, but Gen X did that before it was in fashion and style, right? Because as children, every institution betrayed us and left us to just raise ourselves. Our families, our parents divorced, big government, big religion, higher, a public education. All these things failed us in the chaos of the 60s and 70s. And so I think we don't trust institutions. And I think that's what that data point is saying, is Gen X parents don't trust institutions. But I also think if you read in between the lines, and we see this play out on tour, Gen X does not trust their Gen Z student to do what needs to be done. Which is why when we walk into a real room and it's a bit messy on the tour, the mom just hits the child, like slaps him on the shoulder and goes, see, no one cleans up after you in college, right? So I think, so for me, those two, the 4 types, and then that point about parent concern. So I think the marketing of higher ed and the parent, and I think that's why Campus ESP is such a great partner in this higher ed space. But then I want to address those concerns on campus tours for parents.
And so, I read that report, and kind of what those from a tour guide perspective, those 4 types. It's almost like a tiptoeing into the world of persona-based marketing, because now you've got this persona, and you have an idea of the type of parent it is, and how best to address, at least from a tour guide, how to begin to communicate, to understand the purpose and intent of those questions that they may ask.
Absolutely. And I think that when we do a workshop with ambassadors called You're Very Important, we do a dive into this to help them understand that it's not them, it's today's parents. And I'm consistently apologizing to student ambassadors across the country for our generation, who are horrible, terrible, mean people on campus tours. I would not want to be an ambassador today, because the parent behavior I witness is just off the charts inappropriate. And
interesting.
The questions I've heard parents ask tour guides, I just want to walk up to them. The tour, where do students have sex on campus? We hear there's a cocaine problem on this campus. Who did you vote for in the election? How much money did they give you? Right? I want a tour guide to say to that parent, well, why don't you share your family's net worth with the crowd and we can talk about financial aid? Oh, completely. And you know why that happens is because after the information session is done, the admissions counselor who does it said, and here's our ambassadors who are going to take you on a tour. Ask them any questions you want. Right? Admissions people give permission to these parents.
Yes, they have given the permission.
Correct. Yes. So I try to shut that. We try to shut that down.
So the other thing I'll say when reading the report that kind of connected with me, and I'm not sure you may have seen. There's a Campus ESP is out there. They have this parent portal product,
right?
Really good product.
And
they also have a family engagement study. Yes. I had Dave Becker on the show. We talked about it, and they've got this parent engagement report. And one of the things that stood out to me in that one was, they asked parents, what type of information you're looking for. 88% of their parents said they expect weekly communication from a college university. Weekly.
Weekly. I was shocked by that report too. Yeah.
Yep.
But I get it.
So I can see parents. Schools can say they give it because they send emails all the time to students, and they might consider that. But A, it's not worded to the parent. B, if I'm being real, 85% of those communications are suspect in terms of quality. When we think, right. So there's so much, if they're having that expectation and you can deliver it with quality, there's a whole lot more you can do with it. And I'm always looking for conversion moments in an enrollment process that help you further tailor, because the best communication is relevant to you as the parent, not to you as a family, but to you as the parent, maybe to you as the most involved parent, and then to the student. I want it to be, and so I'm looking for a conversion point. So A, I want to know that you're the parent that's getting the email, not the student. But then you signed up for this tour, you've attended this tour, you asked certain questions on this tour potentially, maybe even to say you're one of these 4 types of parents that we discovered on the tour. And then all of that together helps me ensure that what I'm giving you is the most relevant for you. Does that make sense?
It does. And
it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy.
But do we send a survey after the tour to parents and then one to students, right?
Yes, right.
Because I think boomers and millennials were very collaborative on the college search, right? They were kind of in it together. And I also kind of think, I used to mock boomer behavior on campus tours just because, and then Gen X came around and I was like, oh my gosh, we're horrible, terrible. But I think X and Z are more divide and conquer.
Okay.
But I think because, right, if you look at that stealth parent or that lawnmower parent, they have just been over protecting their child in the chaos of the 21st century. And I think that the Gen Z student has said to us, if my dad said we could afford it and they think it was safe, then I didn't worry about that stuff. I worried about making friends and where I was going to live. And,
Yep.
but I think that, to this point, probably like 7 years ago, my colleague Brittany Joyce, we were at Render Experiences and we were driving in a rental car from a client, and she said to me, "Have you noticed Gen X parents have flipped Maslow's hierarchy?" And early on, we always told our clients, "You are college, lead with academic buildings, lead with academics." Mm-hmm. But it was always, are we going to see a dining hall? Are we going to see a residence hall? And we began telling our clients, all right, Gen X doesn't trust we have the basics covered. So we got to address those on the tour route right away. And then go into academic buildings, show them what they want. And then if you look at all the campus visit research that's come out, Niche's survey last spring and Chorus, what do they want to see? Where they're going to eat, where they're going to sleep.
Yes.
And so by changing those tour routes at most of our clients, we have been able to increase yield and success. Because what would happen before is they go in the library, they go in academic buildings, and the tour's running late. And then they would be rushing through housing, like that schools would bury the lead, do what they want first, right? Do what they want. We would take them late and fast for what they want to know most about and have the most questions. So I think it is hard, but I also think it's easy.
Yep.
But we have to admit the parent is involved.
Absolutely. You got to start there. So there, again, a couple other things that come through my mind. And what you described, changing up the tour route, burying the lead. For me, always, when it comes to email, when I'm talking about, what do we talk about? It's the elephant in the room. What do they care most about? And if they care about eating and living, and you're saving that to the end, they can't ask the right questions and they can't even focus because that's what they care about.
Correct.
Knock out what they care about first. Don't let the elephant sit there.
And what happens is that's also where they're the most engaged and ask the most questions. So it sets a tone for more talking with across a tour instead of talking
at. Love it. I very, very much.
And first on, that was really hard to get clients to change because we're a college, we're academics, and I'm like, I can get a degree anywhere. I can get a degree on sitting at home in my parents' home, but in the selling of place-based education, these things that are place matter.
Hi, everyone. I know we're jumping in here, but the conversation Jeff and I were having was so good, it just kept going. So we've broken it in 2 parts. So I hope you enjoyed part 1. Early next week, we'll drop part 2. See you then.